weekend to present to us and to inform us and really train us up on some of the core competencies that we should know as HR practitioners. So I have one more minute. Since I do, I'm going to cycle back through some of these questions for the newer people who have popped in. If we do decide to do a special presentation regarding technology during the weekday, what time would work best for you guys to attend? If you could vote on that, if you haven't already, that would be great. And this is just for the people who are just coming in. I'm just going to keep this up for a couple of seconds because most of the people have already voted on that. Would you be interested in attending a special event called Using Technology to Make HR Work? And could you please rank for me your comfort in using technology on a scale from 1 to 10? And this is only if you haven't voted already. If we do decide to do the presentation, would you want to do this presentation during our meeting times on Saturdays at 1 p.m. or would you want to do it during the weekday, maybe at 8 p.m. Eastern? So if you can vote on that, that would be great. All right, so thank you so much for your metrics on this. I really do appreciate it. We're going to get started now with our meeting because we have so much to cover. So once again, my name is Sonia. I am the president here of the Hrmca, and I want to welcome all of you to today's meeting presentation. Let me go ahead and start my camera. I'm going to put my camera on today, and let's see here. Let's get this up on the proper screen that we want to be on. All right. Okay, hopefully you guys can see me. I think so. Welcome again to today's meeting. I love all of the interactions there. You're welcome, Natalie. Hey, Beverly, good to see you. All right. So as you guys, some of you are new with us and you haven't been here for a minute. I'm a little concerned with this presentation that I have up here right now because it just doesn't look like the current one. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share a different screen, okay? So I want to apologize to you guys. Maybe this is the proper one because that did look a little weird. I had some changes that I had to make in there. Yeah, this is the new one. Okay. Mistakes happen, but this is a live presentation and we just get through it, right? All right. So here's our leadership team. So I'm really, really happy that Deb Golatino is joining us today. Again, she's Associate Dean of Business, faculty advisor for the club, and she has some wonderful information she's going to share. We'll probably share it together today. Lauren Stahl is not here today because Lauren Stahl has had a baby, so we're very happy for her. We want to say congratulations to Lauren for the birth of her daughter. Brent is our vice president. He is here today. Some of you have seen him interacting there in the chat box. He'll be coming up on screen shortly to do some presentation. We have a new executive board member and secretary. Her name is Amanda Rosales. And so welcome to you and thank you so much for your services. And then our engagement officer, Beverly Timms, is here today, and Amy Rankins is our membership chair, and of course, Renisa Bay Lockwood is our newsletter chair. So let me go ahead and get started again. I'm going to move fast, but this meeting is being recorded, and I will post it in our club space. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box or to revisit this recording in SNHU Connect if I can get it up in a timely manner, okay? All right, so welcome to our board, and of course, welcome to you guys. Here's our agenda today. We're going to do our welcome. We're going to do a PHR certification prep. I recently went through that, and I found some free resources that I thought would be great if everybody would be interested, if you are interested in getting your PHR, if you don't already have it. But a great free resource, oh my goodness. And then some announcements. We're going to then go into our Are You Ready for HR series with Heather Neely. She is the Director of Talent at Connection. And then her topic is going to be on employee relations. And then we're going to do some Q&A. Following that, we're going to do our speed networking. So David had asked about that earlier. So yes, David, for sure. We had a lot of people join us in this past cohort for October and September. So these are all of the amazing people who have joined us in the last couple of months. That was 66 people. It worked because it actually had my little columns here even. I know this is so weird. I'm weird like that. But welcome to each and every one of you. We're very, very happy to have you a part of our organization. So when we think about the PHR, some people think about these certifications and which one is the best one for you to take, and how do you go about paying for this. And so there are pretty much a lot of levels to this. And so I wanted to share this resource with you guys. So let me I'm going to drop it into the Dropbox, to the chat box rather. This is a great site for you to prepare for your PHR. If you're even doing the APHR, you can back out. And this same website, it's called practicetester.com, also has resources for those of you who are looking to take your SPHR or your APHR, some of the other certifications. Sometimes people are wondering, well, what's the difference between the HR certification and from HRIS, such as the SPHR or the PHR or the APHR, versus Hrmca or their SCP. So I found a great resource that I'm now about to put into the chat box too for those of you, because this comes up frequently from a lot of our members. And going through that process, I just wanted to make sure I shared, first of all, some free resources. I actually paid for a prep course for my PHR, and it was really, to me, very watered down. And so I kind of felt like, gosh, I paid a lot of money for this and I'm not getting out of it what I thought I would. And then when I found this practice tester that I just put into the chat box, it was asking questions and I was just completely lost. And so this is in my preparation time. So I was glad to be able to find this this particular one, because it also told me what I got wrong, and it gave me enough repetition where I was able to encode that information. So that's why I wanted to send it to you guys. Sometimes you want to read these long books, or we want to go through these long modules, but sometimes testing on that information is really good. I'm not saying don't pay for one. I'm just telling you what my experience was, and if there are free resources out there, then you can use them. So here is the link to the document that provides the difference between the HRCI certifications versus the Hrm certifications. Both organizations are amazing and very valid in terms of adding to your credentials. So there are some of us who have the Hrmca, and there are some of us who have the HRCIs. So definitely go for it. Hey, Victoria, welcome. Happy Halloween. All right, so next. Which one to choose? It's up to you. You guys can download both of those resources and look at the practice tester later. If you guys want to, during your networking session, you want to go over some of those tests together and somebody share their screen, if you're able to, go for it. I'm going to try to have one of the executive board members in each of the rooms, if possible, depending on how many people how many breakout rooms we end up having at the end. All right, so November. Next month will be voting month for interim elections. And so the only position that we have right now for the midterm elections is the events officer. So we definitely need someone who can run events like this one, and like the one that I was talking about inside of the today. So be sure to fill out the survey for open cabinet positions if you're open to, or if you're interested in becoming our new events officer. We need you. We need you, because what happens when we don't have a position filled is we have to do all the work ourselves. So it would be definitely easier for us to spread it out, because I was talking to somebody today and we were just talking about how overwhelmed we get sometimes, and how we kind of feel like, how do we balance out our time between work and school and family and then the club. So definitely want to do that. And please continue to interact in the chat box. It looks like Deb has a comment in there. The duties of the officer, though, is to promote all events for the organization within SNHU Connect, which you all know is our platform, and other organization properties such as email. And then we also have our LinkedIn page, so you can do it in those three areas. We also have a a YouTube channel, and I'm thinking we could do some live stuff there. So we'll play around with it once we get someone in that role, and someone who is going to be innovative, energetic, competent and ready to really make this robust and interesting for all of you as a club member. If you don't mind, I'm not sure if you guys are able to, and it's no problem if you can't, but to our executive board and Deb, if you guys can share your cameras, that would be wonderful, because I know you guys have some presentations to make. But this person will also share a calendar of events for the club to know when meetings and events are happening, following deadlines in place by the Office of Online Engagement for submitting information to be publicized on the news at SNU and on the university calendar. Thank you, guys. Good to see you. Promote the online club at SNHU Connect and via other SNHU-sponsored social media properties to recruit new SNHU online and continuing education student members. And then finally, to collaborate with other clubs in the SNHU Connect space, because we're all pending, right? We all want to help one another. And so certainly some of us belong to multiple clubs, and we definitely want to do some of those inter-club events. So this is what we're looking for in an events officer. So if that's you, go ahead and make sure that you look at the club space. Sarah King or someone from the Office of Online Engagement will put that link out there for you to self-nominate, okay? All right. And then in April 2020, that's when everybody's position is going to go up for a re-election. There will be those of us who will be graduating out of our programs, and we will not be able to serve as officers. So we started this, but it's up to everyone else who is coming into this program, who's serious about your professional development and really helping other people with theirs. If you're passionate about that, then you're the person for the job. And you're certainly the person to take that baton and to run forward. That includes a new president, a new vice president. If you are graduating, right, Brent? I can't hear you, but you could do a yes or a no with your head. That's fine.
Yes, ma'am, in March. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. A new vice president. I think our secretary. So we have a new secretary. Let's give her a hands up or a clap, or maybe you guys in the chat box. Please, members, welcome. This secretarial role is not an easy role, and you know, it was a conversation we had with Amanda, but we are so happy to have her. We had Sabina. She was amazing, but Sabina, if you guys know her, she's doing like 5,000 things, and it was just too much, which we understand. We get that, but she's still one of my favorite people, and she's still a part of the HRSDA, so very grateful to her, but extremely excited to have Amanda, because I'm thinking Amanda might session plan. I think okay, I got to point that way. I think Amanda's going to be that next president, but you know, who knows? An engagement officer, an events officer. So welcome to you, Amanda. Thank you so much for stepping in.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to your work. Thank you so much. All right, so this is not the right one. I actually made this really nice graphic. Anyway, we would like to celebrate everybody's successes. You know, 2020, you guys, for those of you who graduated in 2020, this has been a rough year for you. You didn't get a chance to go to the arena and to walk across that stage and to have that amazing experience. I had the pleasure of going out a couple of years ago to meet a student who graduated, and it was unbelievable, because you have people from all over the country, as you guys saw in the chat box. People are coming from everywhere. And so it was just so nice to see people and their families and just the emotion. It's a powerful experience, and I feel so bad for the class of 2020 not being able to have that experience. Well, Adobe Connect is not going to give you that experience, but we want to do as much as we can to help celebrate you, just to let you know that you're not forgotten. And so if you can, come November the 14th, wear your regalia. We would love to see you in your cap and gowns. We want to celebrate you. Send us your headshot as well, and any other plans you have for the future. We would love to feature you in our next newsletter next month. So please, 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 please come and celebrate. We want to celebrate you, okay? And we're going to have you up on screen. We want to hear from you. In addition to that, a lot of you have done things like you've become members of the NSLS or another honor society, or maybe you have a new credential, a new PHR, HR, SHRM certification. So maybe you want to display your degrees or your certificates or your credentials. Maybe you got married, maybe you had a baby. Whatever it is, we want to celebrate you. We want this November 14th. So that's not, as you noticed, the last day. It is actually going to be in the middle. It's a couple of weeks from now, simply because of the holidays, and we want everybody to be with their families. I'm not going to be here during Thanksgiving, and I don't expect anybody else to be. So we celebrate you guys, and so please, please, please be here. Go Sigma Alpha Pi. That's right, David. All right. we just want to continue to invite people to join on with us. Now I'm going to turn this over to Deb, or Deb and I, we can kind of go back and forth, you know, how we do, partners. And if everyone else could mute their mics, that would be awesome. But we're going to talk about the virtual business cases coming in 2021. We won't talk specifically about which ones right now because everything is still being cultivated, but we at least wanted to get your ideas on this, and then I'm going to place another link in the chat box. So Deb, go Latino.
Yeah,
right.
So it's great to be here, and thank you everyone for coming out on a Saturday to do this. It's really kind of cool. So Sonya's just an amazing partner. We're always trying to get into trouble together and cook on new opportunities for our HR students and those of you interested in human resources as a career going forward. We have been testing a case in Business 290, which is a new elective available for all business students, which really focuses on talent acquisition with one of our workforce partners. And as we continue to kind of develop new opportunities going forward, what we'll do in kind of this one-term period is present some other challenges out there. We kind of focus a little bit now on talent acquisition because I think what you'll find in the business world, and certainly for those of us that are in HR, that finding talent and keeping talent is really the biggest issue or biggest struggle that we're going to have in our HR career. So Sonia brings some employers to the plate. We talk to them about what their challenge is. You have a couple that are cooking now. I don't want to reveal everything, right? And we'll be delivering more information to you. One of the things that's really important about trying to take advantage of a challenge or even an elective that has a challenge is that you get direct feedback from the employer. You get to connect with the particular employer going forward. And the other thing that you're able to do is actually use that experience on your resume when you're out into the job market. So again, we're looking. I'm going to have Sonia explain kind of the graphic that's up now, but we're trying to put this infrastructure in place so that you get the right experience for when you're ready to go out and look for that job, or whether you're ready to get promoted in that job. What did I miss?
Nothing. I think you did a great job describing this. And so what you guys are looking at is exactly what Deb is talking about. Right now we have the executive rep from the company X, because we're not going to promote that until everything is it's solidified. And then some judges. So that could be adjunct personnel or people like Deb who are sitting in the seat of associate dean. But essentially what this is that you would do a collaborative case study with others in other programs. And so let me just describe what this would be kind of like. And so what you're really doing is you're creating like a mini business unit. So I put in the chat box to sign up for this if this is something you're interested in, so that once everything is a go and we get ready to promote it, we'll make sure that you are on that list of students that this will be promoted to. But essentially what this is doing is it's looking at solving a specific business case in terms of talent acquisition challenge. What this means is that you would join a team of people from different programs such as graphic design, communications, PR, social media, marketing, business, and then of course you as the HR student. I'm going to read over here, so please forgive my head being turned in the opposite direction. But during and this is really for our undergraduate students, sorry graduate students, we'll figure something else out for you for sure. But during the 8-week period of each term, the students then will work together as a member of this cross-functional team, which is a mini business unit. Each team will research a company, that particular company, create a SWOT analysis, and develop a strategic go-to-market plan to solve the company's specific business problem around talent acquisition. And then the final project that you will produce with your teammates will be a proposal highlighting each step of your plan for this talent acquisition problem that they're going to present to you. Each student on the team will be from different business or liberal arts programs and will delegate portions of their proposal to the appropriate team member. So here you can see communication. So that individual would be working with building out a communications plan to prospects. PR obviously would be working in collaboration and trying to figure out what media would be best to utilize. Social media marketing, they put together the marketing plan or the social media marketing strategy. Business students will work on the overall and including the financials. So the business could be accounting, or it could be business administration students. Graphic design will work on what the social media managers or the communications team would utilize graphically. So they'll put together what that looks like. As far as us as HR students, we'll be looking at putting together a staffing plan or whatever that particular case happens to be. But our particular program is at the cornerstone of this as talent acquisition. When you're working in the workplace, and many of you already do, you work cross-collaboratively with other departments to do things. And so we really wanted to create a case study that really mimicked the real business world. It will be actually a competition. So that's where you'll see we have 3 different clubs that are business units that we will create. And Deb actually called them something else. I forgot, so please forgive me. I think you called them, if you can remember, you can come and tell me what it was called. It wasn't business units. What did you call it?
I think I may have called it core teams or what collaborative actually. They're actually cross-functional teams actually is what we're doing.
Right, within.
And one of the things Sonia is talking, when you think about where you're going to go out into work, cross-functional teams are most prevalent. So having this kind of safe space to kind of practice and to work with one another is really going to be beneficial for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What's the benefit of participating? Because you're probably wondering, well, what is it? And Deb touched on this. All participants will be able to add this experience to their resume with the assistance of career services. So we actually will provide you with some verbiage that you can add to your resume for this particular challenge. In addition to this, just being a part of this, the winners will receive a LinkedIn recommendation to embed in their LinkedIn account from the executives and also from myself and Deb. And then first place team will be awarded with a badge that they can share via their social media platform. So if you know how the badging works, for those of you who have the PHR recently got it, they issued a badge, and that badge then can be embedded automatically into their social media accounts. I'm also looking to have it featured on SNHU's social media and perhaps have our team do an article highlighting your experience as the winning team and the outcomes that you had. And so more information is to come. We are over 1:30, so we're 1 minute into Heather's presentation, but I certainly wanted to make sure that I was able to present this to you. If you are interested, I did put a link to the survey where you can sign up so I can make sure that you are on that list, okay? Thank you so much. So after today's presentation, am I going over somebody's part? If I'm going over your part and you're supposed to be saying this, please just talk, because I think I might be talking over somebody's part.
Hey, Sonia, I can do this right here. Hey, Sonia?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I can do this. No, you're fine. You're fine. I just want to talk about the virtual speed networking. Today, after Heather's presentation, we'll be doing a virtual speed networking, which we will break out into a session with other members, and we'll just get to know each other. And we'll just have fun, so don't be shy.
Right. Thanks, Brent. And the Rainisa.
You're welcome.
Slides here, guys. It's okay. Rainisa? I don't think that her mic is on. Sometimes people might have tech issues, so I'll go ahead and just do this. One of the ways that we carry out a mission, vision, and values is through our Are You Ready for a Career in HR series, where we feature presentations from HR subject matter experts and executives like today's guest, Heather Neely. And so I'm not sure if Rainisa, if your mic is on or not, or if you can do that. She might have some issues. Amanda, would you like to read out Heather's bio for us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry, it kept disconnecting. I've been having trouble getting in the room, period. So,
Oh, that's okay.
um,
Ranisha,
yeah,
that's you.
I can
Awesome.
read
Go ahead.
Heather's bio if that's where we're at now.
Please do. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So Heather Neely has 18 years of experience in HR, covering all facets of HR. She's currently the Director of Talent at Connections in Merrimack, New Hampshire. In this role, she focuses on talent acquisition, compliance, as well as employee relations of all kinds. Prior to that, she held executive level roles at the leading global analytics organization, Veristic, if I'm saying that correctly, Analytics. Her last role at Verix was leading HR operations for North, South, and Central America, primarily focusing on operational excellence as well as mergers and acquisitions. Prior to that, Heather worked in HR and healthcare as well as retail. Heather has a bachelor's in business from St. Anselm College and her MBA from SNHU. She also holds the Hrm SCP as well as the SPHR certifications for HR. She currently resides in Nashua with her husband and her cat Harry. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I apologize if I said your name wrong.
No, you got it right. It's pronounced Neely. All right. Well, thanks so much for having me, guys. I'm really happy to be here. Let me just start sharing my screen, the presentation. All right. Sonia, does that look right? Look good?
Looking great.
All right. Great. All right. So Sonia asked me to speak a little bit about what it's like to work in employee relations, which is a lot. So employee relations is a big job. It really encompasses a lot of different things, but it's a really impactful job. So if you guys are interested in potentially going into employee relations type of role, it's a job that requires a lot of juggling, and it has a lot of different pieces to it. So when Sonia asked me to talk about employee relations, I was thinking, okay, how do I do that in 15 minutes? Because it's a lot. So I'm just going to touch on the different pieces that really encompasses employee relations and a little bit about what I do. You know, the employee relations piece is definitely, I've done all different parts of HR at all different levels, private companies, public companies, big companies, small companies. And employee relations is one of my favorite things that I have been responsible for. I think it's a very meaningful job. In my last company, I worked for a subsidiary, and I got promoted up into the corporate headquarters. And one of the things that really that I remember vividly is when the announcement came out that I was being promoted. I remember how many people reached out to me and came to my office to say how much they were going to miss me and how much I impacted their professional careers and how much they learned and grew from working with me. And so, you know, sometimes you don't realize how much of an impact you have on other people until something like that comes up. And so I think it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and all the craziness, but at the end of the day, when you have time to reflect, you realize that it's a really impactful job. So employee relations really covers a lot of different things. So it covers employee engagement, which is incredibly important, especially when your organization really relies on human talent, right, to run and be successful and competitive. Investigations, compliance, and litigation, that's another big chunk. Performance management, which for those of you who haven't really worked in the HR field, performance management is a very it's one of those hot topics, I guess I would say. Policies and procedures, a necessary evil. Leadership and coaching, employee recognition, as well as overall culture, which is, you know, sort of a loaded topic. So what does employee engagement mean? So you hear people say things like employee morale. Employee engagement is really the level of which employees are engaged with your organization. So when you think of the different jobs you've had and you think about the roles that you really enjoyed versus the ones that you didn't so much, you can kind of think about, well, why? Why was I so engaged? Why was I so invested in this particular company or job? And there's a lot of different reasons, and all employees are a little different with respect to what matters to them most, right? So for some people, you have all of these different items listed here, and for some people, some of these matter more than others, right? And so everybody kind of has what's important to them. But when you think about overall employee engagement, we generally measure that through survey data. So employee engagement surveys are something that is a best practice around organizations, so that you have baseline data to really look at your engagement scores and then try to move the needle depending on what that feedback looks like. So making sure that employees get regular feedback, making sure that employees feel like they have a voice and they can share their opinions and their thoughts and their ideas. And that could be anything from in a team setting to a larger department group to organizational perspective. D&I, which stands for diversity and inclusion, making sure that we have a diverse workforce. A diverse workforce really helps with diversity of ideas. And the more different ideas and different backgrounds and different opinions you have in a room, the better the outcome. Connecting the work to the bigger picture, really looking at, does employee A understand how what they do impact, that snowball effect, right, of how that really impacts the company as a whole. A level of autonomy, recognition, employee recognition programs, making sure people feel valued and recognized for their hard work. Communication is a huge one. That's a big piece of things, making sure that the organization is communicating, the manager is communicating, so people know what's going on. They don't feel like they're left in the dark. A good use of their skills. People want to be able to leverage their strengths in their job. So having managers understand how to identify people's strengths and how to leverage them. So much of the time we focus on developing weaknesses, but really leveraging strengths is more impactful. Looking at career growth, is there career paths, do people know what they need to do to get to the next level? Do they know what that next level is? And of course, work-life balance, right? People want to feel like they can manage their home life as well as their work life. And, so much of employee engagement really hangs on the leadership of an organization. So I can tell you a story that I worked for this subsidiary of a larger organization, and we had sort of poor management at the top, and there was a major change of leadership, and we brought in new leadership, and they were really invested. They were invested in the employees. They were invested in employee engagement. They wanted this to be a great place to work, and having that change of leadership and having new partners that were really invested in making it a great place to work, made such a big difference. And we rolled out employee engagement surveys, and I had 100% of their support in making positive changes. And it's all about action, right? So taking that feedback and doing something with it and doing something about it and communicating it. I had, after about 18 months, I improved the employee engagement scores by about 30%, and we decreased turnover by 15% in about 18 months after we started, putting these programs into place. So sometimes people talk about engagement as fluffy. It's not fluffy, right? A turnover is super expensive, and so these things are really important, and they help move the needle. So that's a little bit on employee engagement, which could be a presentation in and of itself. And then investigations, compliance, and litigation. So these are some necessary evils that definitely take place in employee relations. And investigations are so important they can be very unpleasant tasks, but they're just necessary. So a lot of times, working in employee relations, you'll have employees come to you saying, there's a manager who's being inappropriate, sexually harassing employees, or I think that they're stealing, or those are the more serious things. There's also just other things, where that aren't so overt, right? But investigations are really important. So one story of investigations that I think help to paint the picture of the importance of the necessity of being super thorough when doing investigations would be Steve Easterbrook, who was the CEO of McDonald's. So some of you may have heard this story, maybe some of you haven't. He, back in the fall of 2019, this is actually kind of a recent story, he had relations with an employee, so he was having an affair with an employee of McDonald's, and which was obviously inappropriate due to his position. And they end up letting him go. It was supposed to be consensual and all of that stuff, but due to his role and being professional, they decided to remove him. And for those of you who may not know, when you're in that type of position, you generally have what's called a golden parachute, which is just a lot of money that you get in these particular situations. And he got something crazy, like $40 million or something to that effect, as part of his separation package. And the HR folks there that were doing the investigation, they investigated his relationship with this person and all of that, and whatever the story checked out, and they let him go and all of that. However, they did not do a thorough investigation and really work the investigation from start to finish, and they never went back and checked his emails. Which is kind of crazy for thinking about an organization as large and sophisticated as I would assume as McDonald's, to not have done that. Sort of HR investigation 101 is to check the emails. And they didn't check the emails, and they found out that there was, I think it was like 2 or 3 other women that he was having affairs with and all that. And so then they went to go claw back the money because of what they found out. Now, if they had done a proper investigation in the first place, they could have saved themselves $40 million. But this is just an example of why it's so important to make sure that you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's and talking to everybody that you need to talk to. And, I think in my own career, I've had some of my staff members say, oh, well, I don't think I need to talk to that person because I'm sure I know what they're going to say. And so one of my suggestions or words of wisdom, I guess, in all of my years in employee relations is never assume, and you will never cease to be surprised what people will say to you or tell you. So, thorough investigations are super important. Compliance, this is a big one. Compliance is a big old bowl of alphabet soup. Being in HR, you learn and use so many acronyms on the daily that it would make most people's heads spin. But compliance is super important. It's something that keeps us out of hot water. It ensures that people are being treated fairly, and most important, it keeps us out of litigation. So when we think of litigation, if we don't do the first 2 things well, this is what happens, right? So if we don't do thorough investigations and we don't take proper action when people aren't doing the right things, and we don't maintain our compliance like we're supposed to, this is what can occur. And so, but unfortunately, sometimes litigation occurs even if you do everything right, because there's people who feel like they are do something because they feel wronged, right or wrong. I currently have been managing a lawsuit, and so it's so time intensive. But some of the potential consequences of litigation obviously can be bad press. You don't want your company to be in the news, right? You can think of plenty of companies that you don't want your company to be that. Like, you certainly would want to be on the Ellen show right now. Or fines and penalties, back pay. Sometimes they require you to reinstate employment of people that you have fired, so it doesn't get much more awkward and uncomfortable than that. Internal time and resources. For example, in August, I think there was 21 working days in August, and 11 of them I spent in depositions. I still have my regular full-time, more than full-time job responsibilities to do, and I still had to spend 11 out of 21 days in depositions, you know, so so it's stressful. It's stressful for practitioners who have other responsibilities that don't magically go away, and it's obviously incredibly expensive for organizations, so in terms of legal fees. So performance management. So this is another facet of HR. It's probably one of the most contentious, I think, in the last 10 years. Your traditional performance management, people think of performance reviews, these formal things that you sit down with your manager once a year. The dirty secret, for those of you who might not work in HR yet, the dirty secret is that everybody hates them. The managers hate them, the employees hate them, and HR hates them. Everybody hates them. And so there's been so much talk and discussion around what that should look like, and how do you make that process better, because looking backwards isn't incredibly helpful to employees in terms of developing their skills and righting a wrong, like if they're going down the wrong path. So regular ongoing feedback is really what is going to be the most impactful for employees and for managers alike. In my last company, I did scrap performance evaluations, and it was everybody was very, very happy about it, and we really moved to a continuous feedback process, and it was so much better. It's harder to manage, but it's so much better. But you know, so everybody's performance management process is going to look a little bit different. I would encourage anybody to read Adobe's story. If you look up performance management in Adobe, they actually went through a whole process of changing it up. It's actually a really interesting story. So if you have a chance to look it up, I recommend it. But otherwise, you know, looking at goal setting and formal reviews and employee development, and of course PIPs, which are performance improvement plans, to help people who aren't performing up to standards. And policies and procedures, this is another, you know, big part of our job. And so in terms of policies and procedures, why are they necessary? Really to set clear expectations and establish norms. You know, consistent application is so important, that, you know, going back to the litigation piece, this is really what kind of keeps you out of hot water, is really maintaining consistent application of these. Employee recognition, we already talked about this a little bit, but, you know, I liked this quote, the way your employees feel is the way your customers will feel. So if you are saying thank you to your employees, then, you know, that goes a long way, right? I'm just going to do a quick time check. Leadership and coaching, so this is another huge piece. The better your leadership team is, the better your employees will be developed, the better they will perform, which overall will help your company be more successful. And there's so much out there in terms of statistics that employees leave managers, and so having high-level management and leadership qualities in your folks can make a huge difference. You know, when you think about the difference between boss and leader, you know, somebody who coaches, somebody who gives good feedback, who gives credit and says thank you, you know, and so I know I'm kind of running over a little bit on time, but and then company culture. So one of the images that I find really interesting, and I think so true, is sort of looking at company culture of there's the outwardly facing pieces, like your vision and your mission and your and how you talk about your company, and then there's the internal things, right? There's like just the way you operate, the way you do things, the way you manage, the way you communicate, you know, all of those kind of all make up your culture, right? And so what does this look like when it's done right in real life? So for those of you who are in New England, I'm sure this story resonates. But as a quick story before I wrap, so Market Basket is a very popular food chain, a grocery store chain up here in New England, and RDT was the head of, or one of them, the heads of the organization, and he developed a corporate culture that was so superior and so great because he cared about employees, he put them first, he compensated them well, he treated them well. And because he did that, when there was a family coup and they tried to oust him, or well, I guess they technically did, they removed him, the staff actually went on strike. And so basically they stopped operating, they stopped deliveries, customers stopped going to the stores, and they ended up bringing him back after about, I think it was about 6 weeks or 6 or 7 weeks or so. But it's just, when you think about how to do this well, this is one of the stories that always comes to mind, that these are not unionized people. These are not, like, how many times have you seen people who will go on strike just to bring back their leader, right? That they care that much about him. So in conclusion, so what is it like to work in employee relations? Well, you wear a lot of hats. You have to be a detective. You also need to be a therapist for people. You have to know auditing. You have to fight fires most days. You have to learn mediation skills. You basically have to practice law. Sometimes you have to be the fun police. But most of the time, it's like being on a crazy roller coaster that may or may not be on fire. So that's really it. So that's just sort of, in a quick nutshell, what it's like to work in employee relations. So happy to take any questions people might have.
Well, thank you, Heather, for your presentation today on ER, and we really do appreciate your time today with us. I have a few questions for you, Heather.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am. So Stacy says, when you are hiring someone for an employee relations level, what skills are you looking for?
Sure. So much of HR and employee relations specifically is experience. There is no handbook. There is nothing that tells you what to do. So much of it is learning by practice. And so when I look at hiring HR business partners or anybody who's going to be handling any employee relations, it's really about, what types of situations have they handled in the past. It's not that hard to learn litigation and things of that nature and the compliance and things like that. But when somebody comes to you with a problem and how you approach it, and really having the background of the legal expertise to kind of know what you can and can't say and kind of how to proceed, that's probably the most important thing. So it's not, if you have somebody who has not been in that type of role prior, my suggestion would be try to get as many HR internships as you can, kind of get your foot in the door at a more of an entry-level generalist role, and then kind of work your way into that. Another way for some of my folks who worked their way into it was a good starting point is doing exit interviews and kind of learning how to question and ask questions and get feedback. So a lot of times when I have somebody who's looking to grow in their career, that's kind of one of my first steps is giving them that responsibility. So if you're in HR, ask to be able, do some of those things.
Yes, ma'am. Another question is, for your company, do you guys deal with the litigation part or going through an arbitrator if somebody has, a discrepancy with you guys or any problems with you guys?
Well, we are not a unionized environment, so you can kind of take that off the table. For those of you who aren't aware, if somebody's going to file a discrimination claim, wrongful termination, generally what that has to go through a government agency first, so that normally goes to the EEOC or an agency thereof first. The EEOC decides whether or not there's any weight to the case. Then they can decide whether or not they're going to pursue it or not pursue it. If they say they're not going to pursue it because either they don't feel like the case is strong enough or for whatever reason, then they're issued a right to sue letter. And so what that means is, and a lot of people don't realize this, so what that means is that the individual can go hire an attorney and sue you, personally, and I guess, as a company. And so then what happens there is it really depends on the case. So for example, I'm managing something right now that's, it's just kind of crazy. Our company is not at fault at all, and this woman is grasping at straws, right? So we wouldn't go into any sort of arbitration. We're just fighting it and saying no, we weren't wrong in this situation. There's other times where you work for organizations and maybe there is some fault. Perhaps it wasn't on purpose, but sometimes people do the wrong things because they don't know any better, or they make mistakes. And so in those circumstances, obviously, it could be treated differently. So it depends on a lot of different factors.
And is it kind of, if a CEO or other executive gets into trouble, is it hard to talk to them about that, or?
I've had to do that. I can think of one really awful one. So I won't say the company, but I worked for a company, and the CEO was not super polished, loved to joke around, a little bit of a, what do you call it, a jokester, whatever you want to call it. And he got up in front of the company meeting, so in front of all of our employees, and used a term that I know he didn't mean in a bad way, but it did have a bit of a sexual context that was inappropriate. I know that's not what he meant, but obviously some people took offense to it. And I had to sit down with him and tell him, you cannot do that. You can't, and it's really awkward. He was my boss. I reported directly to the president at the time, and I had to sit down and tell him, you can't do that. And here's why, right? Here's what you risk for our organization when you do things like this. And it was one of the more uncomfortable conversations I've ever had to have in my career. And I could tell he was pretty embarrassed that it had to happen. And so he said, I understand. And he left, and he sent me a follow-up email apologizing and saying, I'm really sorry that you had to have that conversation with me. That must have been really difficult. It really was. But that's, unfortunately, that's the job, is having really uncomfortable conversations with people. So.
All right, are there any more questions, guys?
No, I think that we're all clear. So, Heather, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an amazing presentation. We are very grateful to you. And, if there's any other additional questions that you guys do have, feel free to email us at the Hrmca, and we'll be able to make sure we forward your questions on to Heather. Thank you so much for your time. I know that you have a family event. It is so wonderful to have an SNHU alum like yourself to come back and to give back to us. And so we're very, very grateful for that. I don't know if we can clap or if we can do this. If you can show your appreciation in the chat box, we really appreciate your time, and we hope that you have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank you, Heather.
Goodbye.
Right. Bye. So Beverly, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very good. No picture, but I'm here. Right now it's time for speed networking, and you're about to be randomly placed into a breakout session with other members. Our goal is to get to know one another and make new friends or professional connections. It's a great chance to take turns introducing one another. So have fun with it and talk about anything that you want to share with others or ask of others. The screen here displays some of the conversation openers if you can't think of anything to break the ice. Oh, I don't see that screen.
Not on the screen. Sorry. Whatever you guys want to talk about. Today's presentation, whatever.
Whatever. Yes, employee relations. And we'll take approximately 20 minutes, and then we'll see. We'll take time to do that, and then we'll see you back in 20 minutes to wrap up today's meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Yes. Thank you. All right, here we go. You ready? In 3, 2, 1.